Greetings, friends. So, welcome to our course's DYPIU chapter. Hello, friends. My name is Jay, and I'm currently a second year student at DY Patil International University. So, today, the topic of our presentation is going to be on the tuple in the Python language. So, let's just start with the basic definitions in the tuple. So tuple is basically defined as the one of the built-in data types in Python which are used to store the collection of data inside a single variable. When I said it can be used to store a collection of data, which means it can store the integer value, float value, and a string value, etc. Like the list also stores that, right? But here the one most important thing about the tuple to note that it is the tuples in a Python language are immutable data types. Now, what does this immutable data type mean? The immutable means we cannot change the elements inside the tuple. That is, we cannot add or remove elements in a tuple once we declare in a single variable. So this is now enough talk about the tuple. Now let's switch to my IDE and I'm going to show you guys how we can actually create a tuple. So here we are in a Microsoft Visual Studio Code where I'm going to show you guys how we can actually create a tuple. So let's just start with creating an empty tuple in Python. So I'm just going to write for one variable. Let's suppose I'm writing my tuple as a variable name, and in that you have to just pass one pair of parentheses, and that's it. Your first empty tuple in Python is created. Now let's just try printing it. You have to write print my tuple, and let's see what the output shows us. Yeah, it is showing us one pair of parentheses. That means our tuple is empty. There are also one more way to see if a tuple is actually empty or not. That is by using the len function. If we use the len function, it shows how many elements are present in our tuple. So here, the len function is also showing us 0. That means that there are 0 elements present in a tuple. So now, let's just try creating a non-empty tuple in Python, right? Because after we have created an empty tuple, now let's just try creating a non-empty tuple. Here I'm writing a variable that is my tuple, and inside that, let's create a tuple. Let's say in that we are going to store an integer value that is 23, another integer value, let's suppose 56, one float value 2 point, sorry, 2.34, one string value also we are going to store, that is the code chef. Let's suppose we again want to store integer value, so we will store 89. Again, one string value we can store, that is hello. Now let's just printing this tuple. Now let's see what is the example, what is the output is showing us. So yeah, it is showing that our first non-empty tuple in Python is created. We can also use here the len function to check how many elements are present in my tuple. So it says 6 elements. So there are 6 elements present inside our tuple. Now here there is one more interesting way of creating a tuple. That's also that also I like to show you guys. That is, you have to take one variable that is my tuple. Here I'm taking my tuple, and without using a parenthesis, you just have to pass the element which is separated by the comma, right? Let's suppose I'm taking 12, 34, any string value. Suppose Python, again one integer value that is 56. Again, you can store a float value. We haven't stored any float value, so let's suppose 78.65, and that's it. This is another way of creating a tuple. So let's just try to print this, and let's see what output is showing us. So yeah, it is showing us the same output as the previous one. That is a tuple is also created with this way or with this way. But here, important thing to note that if we want to create a tuple with a single element, right? What if we want to create a tuple with a single element? Then we cannot write in this way like tuple and the 12. No, we cannot write this way because it will store the value 12 inside a variable. Inside a variable my tuple, it does not store the tuple. So what if we try to print this also? Let's see my tuple. So it will print 12, but if we print the type of my tuple, then it will show you the integer. It is the integer type, not the tuple actually. See, it is saying int means it is an integer variable, not the tuple variable. So to create a tuple with a single element, what we have to do is we have to pass a parenthesis, right? And after the parenthesis, after the one element we write, we have to just pass a comma. That's all. Your first tuple, that is your first element in a tuple is created. So let's just type print here and show you the output. So yeah, so tuple is created which has one element that is the 12 and also the type is tuple, that is the type is not integer this time, the type is tuple. So moving forward, let's see what we have here. So remember I told you the tuples are the immutable data types in Python. So which means that we cannot add or remove elements from the tuple. So let's just try if we can or we cannot. So let's suppose I'm taking this example. Let's copy this example and try to paste it here. And what if I try to add one element in a tuple? Let's suppose I'm trying my tuple at the sixth index. I'm trying to add one element that is the 76, let's suppose. And again, we print my tuple. Let's just see what the output shows us. Yeah, it is showing us the error. Why error? Because it says that the tuple does not support an item assignment, which means you cannot add the element in a tuple. Similarly, if you try to remove one element from a tuple, then also you cannot remove it as the tuple are the immutable data types. When you declare a tuple inside a variable, it cannot be changed. But here one trick is there. We cannot delete an element from the tuple one by one, but if we want to delete a whole tuple at the same time, then we can delete it by using a del keyword in a Python. So I'm writing del my tuple. So in that way, my tuple is deleted. So let's just try printing my tuple and see what is showing us. See, it is saying the name my tuple is not defined. That means the tuple is completely deleted at this state only, right? So moving forward, let's see what we have. Now, as we can see that we cannot add or remove elements in a tuple, but what we can do is we can concatenate two tuples if we have. So suppose I have one tuple called T1 as 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and I have another tuple called T2 as the element 5, 6, 7, 8. And what if I want to concatenate both the tuple? That is, then I want to just print T1 plus T2. In this way, you can concatenate both the tuples. Remember, friends, it is not the same as we are trying to add a single element in a tuple. We just trying to concatenate both the tuples. So let's see what the output shows us. See, it concatenates both the tuple inside a single tuple. So similar as the list only, the tuple also are we can store a tuple inside a tuple in a Python. That is the nested tuple we can call it. So for the nested tuple, let's take these two example only here. I'm going to show you how we can store a tuple inside a tuple. So let's suppose I'm creating another variable t3, and inside the t3 I'm going to just pass t1 comma t2. Right. Now let's just try printing this t3. So what we're going to show here is the type of a nested tuple. Means tuple inside a tuple. We are going. This example is going to show us tuple inside a tuple. So yeah, see this one. Here we have created one nested tuple. That is, we are created a tuple inside a tuple in a Python. Isn't that cool? Now moving, we have one repetition in the tuple. Means if we want to create a tuple to repeat the same element 3 or 4 times, then also we can do that. For example, we have one example that is the t. Beside the t, I have suppose some elements that is the 12, 23, one string value that is, let's suppose hello, another string value, let's suppose no, this example actually don't work here, friends. It only works with a single integer or single string. Let's suppose we have one string that is the Python. If I want to print a Python, let's suppose 3 times, so I just pass here into 3. This will create a tuple with the element of a 3 times Python written in it. So let's just try printing this t. See, a tuple is created with written as Python, Python, Python 3 times. Actually, this is not a tuple. Remember, if you want to create a tuple with a single element, you have to pass here one comma, right? So at this, so let's suppose this time what shows us? Yeah, it is showing us a tuple with the 3 times name Python written in it. Yeah, that's all. You can not only the Python, you can type here any integer value also. Let's suppose 23 or 34, let's say. This. And we are want to print 34 5 times. So if I try to print this t, let's see what the output shows us. Yeah, it says 34 is printed in my tuple 5 times. So let's just move to the presentation and see what we have. So that's all today for the friends. We will meet in the next video. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Until then, stay safe, stay at home, get vaccinated. Thank you.